Senator Johnson.
So a lot of what we heard here today literally makes no sense. When you look at the history of returns and removals, you know, the Obama administration, first Trump administration, you have to kind of throw out Biden. It was such an aberration. Obama, on average, they returned and removed about 650,000 people a year. Trump in his first term, about 500,000. It's lower than Obama. This first year, there have been a little under 600,000 returns and removals. That's a lot, but it's not a whole lot when you realize we flooded who knows how many, at least probably 10 million people, if not more, during the Biden administration and created this enormous mess. By the way, including that, according to DHS, 650,000 criminals that are at large. They're not detained. 15,000 murderers. 20,000 people convicted of sexual assault. I mean, that's the mess that the Democrat and President Biden's open border policy created that the Trump administration is trying to clean up. But they deported close to 600,000 people under this administration, and in most states and most cities, there aren't protests. There aren't protesters being shot. Obviously, problems in Los Angeles, probably Portland. You know, these places that claim to be sanctuary cities, that sounds like, Attorney General Ellison is denying the fact that, we cooperate with ICE. I think Representative Niska wouldn't agree with that. So again, I'm trying to square this circle going, this doesn't make sense to me. I wish we had the government officials here, the DHS officials, our next panel on this one, just to refute this, to rebut it. We had a very interesting hearing last week on the fraud in Minnesota, and we had State Senator Mark Cron. And in his testimony, he was talking about local reports of something like 30,000, they call them observers, being trained. Okay, I thought that was an incredible figure. I'm not saying there actually were, but it certainly sounds that there are activists being trained. Are you aware of training for activists, Mr. Ellison, in Minnesota? That some of these protesters literally went through training. There are groups out there providing training. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, I'm aware of that. I mean, it's common for people to use their First Amendment right to protest things that they don't believe are right.
Were you aware of the
First Amendment activity, sir?
Yeah. Were you aware of the signal chats? I believe it was the Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota was actually helping manage one of those signal chats that were deploying those trained activists to the legal law enforcement actions. Or were you aware of that signal chat that was being used to deploy those people?
I'm aware it exists, but this is First Amendment activity, sir. Okay, this is something that the law.
Did you ever encourage people to go out there and exercise the First Amendment?
Yeah, I do.
Right. I
freely admit being in favor of the First Amendment.
You encourage trained activists to put themselves into harm's way because you had to know, because you were watching this, that there were scuffles at least, that these people were obstructing justice. I would think you'd actually, as the chief law enforcement officer of Minnesota, be concerned about people obstructing justice. So, putting their cars in streets, blocking roads. I would think as chief law enforcement, you would be concerned about that, but were you ever concerned about encouraging, I guess, people to support you to go out and put themselves into harm's way?
No, we never.
Impeding and obstructing illegal law enforcement action. Did that ever concern you?
Sir, that never happened. We all times said, if you want to protest peacefully, protest safely. But you'll never find me being against the First Amendment
right now. But
I'll always be for the First Amendment.
But you were seeing the scuffles, right? You were seeing and by the way, Minneapolis police officials could not help protect ICE officials, right? I mean, Representative Niska, isn't that when you're talking about the nullification of federal law? Isn't that one of the, Hennepin County, that they simply could not help and protect ICE in their legal law enforcement actions?
the Minneapolis Police Department issued guidance in July saying that they would not even help with crowd control around immigration operations. And Minnesota leaders encouraged that kind of action. The Minnesota Lieutenant Governor encouraged people to put their bodies on the line.
I can't imagine encouraging somebody that supported me politically to go and put themselves into harm's way. I can't imagine that, particularly when you know that these law enforcement officials had been shot at, a couple of illegal immigrants inadvertently killed because people were shooting at ICE officers. Their vehicles have been rammed by some of these peaceful protesters, probably the trained activists. They've had rocks thrown at their vehicles. I can't imagine encouraging people, put yourselves in harm's way. Get out there and record that. I, as a government official, would have said, back off. Let us work with ICE. Let's cooperate with them. Let's see if we can't de-escalate this. But Attorney General, you did the exact opposite. And 2 people are dead because you encouraged them to put themselves into harm's way. And now you're exploiting those 2 martyrs. That was a tragedy. It never should have happened. Now, we can investigate, but I can't imagine being a law enforcement official where I know my colleagues have been shot at, their vehicles rammed, that their trained activists deployed. And by the way, we know at least one of those activists had a semi-automatic pistol with extra clips. So now you're an ICE officer, you're doing enforcement action, you've got a team behind you trying to protect you, you've got all these trained activists behind you. Is it any wonder they're at hair trigger alert? A tragedy was going to happen, and you encouraged it. And you ought to feel damn guilty about it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.